Hi everyone and welcome back. I hope you're doing really well today. I'm coming on today to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is an eclipse, an annular solar eclipse in Gemini that we will be having on June 10th, 2021. I'll put some details below in the description box about visibility and timing depending on your location, as this will be happening at different times of the day depending on your time zone. Yes, I'm so excited to be talking about this eclipse because it feels like such a long time coming. It feels like this eclipse represents such a change in what we think about our lives, how we're communicating in our lives, and basically how we're communicating a lot of our experiences. Not only to other people, but to ourselves. So self-communication, I think, is one of the main things coming up with this solar eclipse, being that it is in the communicative sign of Gemini. And in this video, I'm going to first be talking about just the intuitive messages that I'm feeling about this solar eclipse. And then I'm going to do another chapter about the surrounding astrology to get a fuller picture of what's going on in the sky. So without further ado, everyone, let's talk about it. Be sure to check the description box below. This channel is on Patreon. And if you're new, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell notifications. And also your likes and comments really help to get this video out there. Okay, so annular solar eclipse in Gemini, June 10th. Okay, intuitive messages. This is a big revealing of why we are where we've gotten to, okay? Any questions about, why me, why this location, why this goal, why am I here, why am I in this conundrum? This becomes very clear over the next month. So as we know, eclipses really affect an entire lunar cycle, especially because eclipses are created by the moon. So this eclipse will echo strongly until at least July 10th of 2021. And if this is hitting anything in your chart, it's likely that this could even echo for the next year, okay, to some degree. And we've just come from a really super potent lunar eclipse that happened May 26th. I made a video about that. It'll be linked below and in the top right-hand corner of this video. It was the super blood flower eclipse moon. And basically what was happening then inside is going to come outside now. So the emotional roadblocks, the emotional obstacles, the unanswered questions are going to not only be internal, but they're going to come external. So to me, this looks like synchronicities. It looks like the universe and life working to show us the way forward. I think that there is something maybe a little bit tricky about this eclipse, but I also think that it's loving. It is something that at least requires us to be loving to ourselves, or requires us to take a kinder approach to our progress as people, to understand our humanity and to understand our imperfections as well, because Gemini can also be perfectionist energy, and it can be very demanding of multiplicity. What do I mean? So we see with the Gemini sign that it wants to be very multitasking, or it wants many different things working at once. It gets freaked out, the archetype of Gemini, when we're too reliant on one thing or one person, or any type of conglomeration of like power or reliance in our life becomes a bit of a threat to us with this energy, and it makes us basically want to have other sources of value or capability in our life. And I think that this eclipse, because as we know with eclipses, something comes in, something goes out. It's one of the most visceral, likely to manifest in the physical astrological events, a solar eclipse. You can usually really see this in your life. It's not usually that, hidden, or you have to really think arbitrarily or hyperbolically to understand what this astrology transit is doing, although it is in the Gemini Sagittarius axis, which deals exactly with that, so it gives it a little bit of that. It is going to be physical, okay? There is going to be a physical expression, whether it's a move, whether it's a change in thinking that you can really physically see, to the degree that maybe it's having an effect on the health of your body. Like maybe you come out of a previous cycle of procrastination with this solar eclipse, or you come out of a previous addictive cycle with food or with any type of anything going into your body, and that shows a really direct, immediate effect. I'm seeing a lot of people really cleansing and purifying their body with this transit, getting their mind into the place that it needs to be to actually manifest the changes that they need. And it can go both ways. This solar eclipse can trigger not the greatest mental thinking tendencies. So we can get too ambitious with this solar eclipse, being that it's by North Node and Mercury. We're not talking yet about the astrology, but it is right between the North Node and Mercury, this solar eclipse. So that to me says that it's creating a cycle of ambition for a lot of people. It's removing some of the inhibitors that used to be there when it comes to leveling up or getting to a goal, or for example, because you always had a certain type of debt, you didn't feel that you could pursue a type of career that pays less, but that you like more. The debt could be removed here. You could finally pay that off and not any longer have that inhibition to pursue what you want for money's sake. There's sort of money becomes less of a consideration for a lot of people with this transit. Again, Gemini does not deal much with money or with sources of value. So we start to deal more with just what we want, what we're ambitious about, what we're motivated toward, because the North Node is all about motivations and Mercury is all about thoughts and thinking, and it's the ruler of Gemini. So we think differently about our motivations now. There's a very tangible shift in goals, motivations, why we're doing what we're doing, our why factor. The why factor, the reason why the things that we're doing in our life exist. So you know how certain companies or certain organizations have their mission statement. That's what this energy is like. It's like the creation of a mission statement, or the creation of a set of, guidelines or something that says why I'm doing what I'm doing. It's happening to everybody to some degree, but if you are, doing something with the public or something, I think that this is a very consequential time to think about your mission statement or your why factor. Why am I doing this business? Also with relationships, why am I in a relationship with this person? What is the mission? What is the momentum behind it? We have to think very clearly about these things, because I think a lot of us, we think, that's an important thing, mission statements, why factor. But at the end of the day, it's just all about money, or it's just all about, the actual business at hand. Who cares about the reasoning? That's not what moves things around. But we would be surprised to know, especially with this transit, about how much momentum these sort of more arbitrary, more linguistic as well. It's very linguistic energy. The sign of Gemini is about speaking. Linguistics, it's about language, it's about writing and communication. So I would definitely want to make sure all of that was in line for anyone. Is my internet security good? Am I would also suspect that there would be maybe hacking or some type of problem around communications and internet as well with this transit. Maybe there's going to be new regulations. Maybe there's going to be new security protocols. Maybe there's going to be something like that. And also I think that, anything that relies on communication at the root of it, that's everything to a degree, but anything, especially technological, because I think everything that we do within technology, within our phones, it's all a matter of communication, the systems and the procedures and everything. There's always a sort of communication process going on there. I would say that is something that might need focus at this time, because there are shifts happening within the way that these things work or operate. Also, social media comes up with this transit. The communications that happen on social media, the communications that happen in that form are something that will be changing at this time. So something that I haven't talked too much about yet is making sure that we're not doing things that are not really who we are. Okay, what do I mean by this? This is kind of complicated, but it's actually really simple if I think about it. Anonymity. is something that comes up with this, and perhaps the eclipsing of anonymity. I don't know that it really exists at all, having so much concentration in Aquarius, Pisces, and then Aries, Taurus, Gemini. All of this is quite open, quite universal, quite total, okay, totalistic, willing to identify, enjoying the process of showcasing the identity, okay? It's very identitarian stuff coming in, and this just happens. This happens in a cycle within humanity, and it's going to be a very long time before this changes. So what else can I really say about that? Not much. I mean, it's not really like my specialty, but I'm just saying that this astrology is very much about a communication of self. It's identification. This is identification, is the energy of this eclipse, and it's not going anywhere. It's not giving this up, like after the eclipse or anything. This is perhaps like for some people, a change in identity, or people are wanting a different with the eclipse energy, because again, something comes in, something goes out. So if we're thinking identity, like some people might be wanting to really change who they are, like cosmetic surgery, a big change in appearance, a big change also in culture or location, because those are all parts of our identity as well. Changes in jobs, those are part of it too. And that feels to me like positive. Like I think with this, we also kind of, with the North Node involvement, the feeling of destiny, we get the idea of like our destined identity or our destined style of communication as well, how we're communicating to others, how we're fitting into collective consciousness. All of that stuff is very destiny-centric right now, we're going to say. I like that. I like that with North Node, Moon, Sun, Mercury, Gemini, sort of stellium eclipse going on here, destiny-centric change in expression, okay? And I mean, I love saying this because it can be easy or hard. We can do this the easy way or the hard way. Like, being that we have Neptune and Jupiter in Pisces, it's the forces outside of ourselves, or the waves of life, are not something I feel that can be resisted easily. That idea of like one person being against the grain, or being against the collective push, I don't think does anything. I think that there's way too much momentum behind certain things that we've been building in our lives, and if we try really hard to upend it now, it's kind of like that small sailboat in the ocean, in the stormy ocean. It might be good and it could be fun in a way, but there's sort of a danger in like really trying to put yourself in that type of situation too. So if you can identify any like really stormy situations or anything with like a lot of like dark heaviness, I do think that some people maybe have a destiny point contact or something with pioneering through that. But I think for the most degree, we have a lot of sunnier, lighter, kinder shores with which to navigate. Okay, so yes, we're speaking very hyperbolically. It's always really intense like this with eclipses. Like I am just excited for us to have a little bit of an easier time. It's just like really crazy, this eclipse, especially with the North Node in Gemini. And of course, eclipses are always happening by the nodes, because the nodes determine the signs of eclipses. So it's not like strange that it's by the North Node. But this has a lot to do with the fact that Mercury is there, and Mercury is retrograde in Gemini. So I think that we just have to dispel heaviness as much as we can and release it, purify it, and distinguish what is really a value for us now. Moving forward with intuitive messages. So there is a need to distance ourselves from why we couldn't give ourselves this before. So we have to really, okay, so that's complicated, very Gemini. We have to distance ourselves from reprimanding our reasoning for not being over certain things. So allowing certain things to motivate us for such a long time. One of the biggest deals with this eclipse is we can get upset that we didn't get there sooner, that we didn't already overcome this. And that can create a whole nother cycle of like self sabotage to a degree, of like gosh, I spent so many years not being able to get over that breakup. Gosh, I spent so many years not being able to get some of my real world material things in order, and I've lost so much momentum because of not being able to face things. And then that can become its own version of that, you know? So the biggest gift we can give ourselves with this eclipse is to just kind of have a blank slate and to really get into the present and be like, well, I've made certain choices in the past and I can't change that now. All I can do is change the present and start to be a healthier person, especially starting with health. So I would also really urge you to not get too wild with things, okay? So not getting too crazy, like, okay, I'm making up for lost time now, you know, going into eye of the tiger mode. Some people are going to do that and some people are going to do that really well. That's a lot of what this eclipse is like. It's kind of like eye of the tiger stuff. It's kind of like one of those early 2000 movies as well, like the action movies with all the crazy slow motion movements and like fighting scenes and stuff. That's a lot of what this energy is like. And with that, I would definitely recommend caution. That's a lot of like broken glass or crazy things like flying around. So accident indication, very likely. Although Mars and Pluto, let me see what they're doing. Let's just go ahead and segue straight into the astrology portion of the video. Okay. Yeah, so Mars, what's it doing with Pluto? Yeah, actually, it's exactly opposite Pluto. Okay, it's just moved through opposition with Pluto, and it's out of orb, but it's not really square Uranus, but there's kind of a sort of out of orb T-square between Mars, Uranus, and Pluto. So we have to be cautious at this time. That is an accident indication, or it can be sometimes in astrology when you have crazy transits like this, along with Mars, Pluto, or Mars, Uranus connections, we can very easily have a paradigm shift in that way, because that is usually why accidents or any type of difficulty happen, is to really trigger a shift in paradigm. So that shift in paradigm is going to happen. Try to give it to yourself without needing to put yourself in any type of harm's way. So that's just what you have to know. Like, again, these videos are just for entertainment purposes, but I always like to tell people when these types of transits come up, Mars opposite Pluto with a solar eclipse on the Gemini Sagittarius axis, right by a Mercury retrograde in Gemini. If there ever was a time to advise a bit of caution and slowing down, okay, taking it easier, making sure that everything like with your any type of machinery or vehicles is in order, like watch out for, and we can't control what happens to us when we're like on the highway or when we're in transit. We can't always totally control that, but what we can do is make sure that we're not driving when we're sleep deprived. We can make sure that we're in our right mind whenever we go to be in transit. We can make sure that, we're not in contact with any type of like harsh chemicals or any type of, we just have to take small steps that we're thinking about things when we're like preparing food or working with kitchen equipment, we just have to really slow things down and be deliberate with what we're doing. Mercury retrograde in Gemini always makes us want to do too much, too fast. Okay. So we want to listen to that podcast and like cut vegetables and like, talk to our spouse at the same time and, turn on the blender to go while all that's happening. And that's where you're getting into the territory of like, accidents. So I would really plan out what you're doing every day. I would try to not deviate from it too much. Anything that has given you problems before, like that one road that you always know that you have bad traffic issues on, stuff like that. That's all we can do. It's all we can do. And release things, because pent up energy is what leads to these types of transits unleashing that energy. Anything that's been repressed or bottled up or pent up will probably release over this week time, Definitely, we want to understand things that are safe in our lives with this, and that's another positive aspect of the eclipse, is understanding things that are safe, okay? And that's probably where we want to be. That's probably where we want to be. And as we identify things that are safe, it's good to then know what didn't fall into those categories, okay? And I would recommend everyone do this. Make a T-chart. Make a, what are those things called? Those like circle charts with the two circles, like a Venn diagram. Is that what those are called? I think. Making a Venn diagram of things in your life that are safe and things that feel dangerous. And what's falling in the middle, you might be really surprised with what you come up with. Okay, this is very Gemini stuff. Like Gemini is all about like diagrams and things which are categorized like this to a degree. So what else do I want to talk about for the astrology? Jupiter's getting into Pisces. Again, be sure to hit that subscribe button and the like button if you want a Jupiter and Pisces video. I'm going to try to work on that and squeeze that into this month's content calendar. But yeah, hit that like button for a Jupiter and Pisces video. It's at 2 degrees and it's in retrograde shadow 2. So it's just barely acquainting us with Pisces energy at the same time. So this gives it an emotional tinge. It's not an orb to any of the other transits, but outlying, we have this sort of like deep emotional hint to what we're going through. So on one hand, we feel that a lot of this stuff is small, or we feel that a lot of this stuff is just like, a matter of communication, but then we feel outside of all of this more broadly that there is a huge emotional undercurrent to every single little thing that we're taking on, and we're like maybe a little bit overwhelmed by that. Jupiter and then Chiron and Uranus being exactly semi-sextile in Taurus and Aries, and then again, yes, that is semi-sextile to the North Node. So it's like a fan, the current transits, I'm sure there's a chart on the screen now, are a fan, what we call a fan in astrology. And that means that there is so much energy put into such a large array of signs that it essentially blocks out what's on the other side. So we also have that represented by the eclipse as the sun is blocked out by the moon. So I would say that that's the main archetype that I can identify for you guys based on the astrology, is that maybe the result on the other side of this is not visible. Maybe something, maybe everything is not really visible. Maybe all of the results are not yet visible. But as the eclipse moves through and as this fan eventually goes away and pulls back a little bit, we're going to start seeing where our momentum is taking us a little bit more clearly. And I don't think that is that important at this very second. I think that the fan, if I would interpret this, is saying that we don't have to focus so much on what's on the other side of this right now. Can't we look at what's here and now? Can't we admire what is on the fan? Can't we admire what is there? It's almost like, like those really beautiful room dividers that have like beautiful artwork and they can like divide out rooms and stuff. You see that a lot in like Japanese architecture. That's kind of what I'm feeling with this. And what that says to me is that it's a symbol for getting a really clear set linear path. So to a degree, it's like less open, like the air and fire energy is really opening up the world. It's really opening up the possibilities. But now there's also a more of a linear set momentum too that comes in within that. So whereas this structure may be really big, it feels also then divided with like a beautiful sense of architecture as well. So that says to me that we don't need to overwhelm ourselves with mental flotsam and jetsam. We don't need a million different things in a million different places. We need to have a very clear and specific view of like what we're going through, of what we're taking on, and to not really go wild in a lot of different places, okay? And to not try to overdo ourselves. Though there's a contrast at the same time with that. I mean, this is contradictory, but the Gemini and Aquarius and Pisces energy really says that there's a revealing, or that there's a huge vista, or that there's a huge view at the same time. Okay, which I think that that's also like a beautiful combination. As maybe you walk through a beautifully linear architecture, you can see out a window into a vista. There's kind of like that full picture. There's kind of like multiple components, and it's very distracting. Okay, it's a very distracting thing. Like, I don't know how we can really pay attention to anything else other than some of the architectural components to the path that we've chosen. at this time. It's very Sphinx-like energy as well, where it's just like it is what it is. This is where we've come to, and I think that this dialogue that's coming up is very comparable to what we went through in 2020 with the Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto energy in Capricorn, which created so many structures and really mapped a long-term momentum, and then combining that now with the much more open and much more breathable energy of 2021's sort of astrological transits. And what I've just been talking about with like the architecture, it's kind of just a symbol or something that you can think about as well as you're moving through some of these energies. But I guess what could be so perfect for the rest of June and into July would be like a house decorating or home decor or interior designs or choosing locations to build houses. Anything along those lines could be very well for people right now, because I think that people have a very innate ability to structure open things. So, having open space to build upon, creating some type of structure in your life as well, in a space that's been very open, like any part of your life that's been very open and non-inhabited can now be structured very easily, and there can be that really good combination of structure and openness, okay, which is a big part of humanity, that combination, as humanity has come into an open world and created many different forms of structure, sometimes too much as well. So we have to understand that balance, that yin-yang balance between openness and structure. And I feel like that's probably mostly of what this eclipse is doing. Again, being that it's in Gemini, it's about ideas. It's about how we think about the components of our lives and how that then does have a physical effect. So food for thought. It's very much a food for thought transit, but it does definitely have tangible and real results. Anyway, a last point, something maybe a little bit more simple and physical to leave you with about this transit. Being, again, that it's in Gemini and it's preceding us into Cancer season, obviously, I think that this preempts a huge change in how we think about ourselves, like how we think about our progress thus far, how we then motivate our progress into the future. Basically, you have a very, very nice revealing, a very nice look through the looking glass at your own characteristics, at your own strengths, even at your own weaknesses. And with that truth, if you can be honest with yourself about it, because with Gemini, there's always this ability to negate or deny as well, or to choose not to look at everything, but to only look at one side. It's a dualistic sign. But if you can look at everything, if you can really bear it all to yourself, if you can really be truthful about yourself, about how you've done well, how you haven't, and just look at these results, you can start to create a present situation that can not fail you. Okay, that's like the potential of this time. You can create situations that can't fail, like which kind of freaks me out. Like whenever humans have done that too, they've like created really like freaky situations. It makes me think of like the Titanic, like things which are predetermined to not be able to fail end up creating huge problems. So I would definitely think about that as well. It's probably not possible to create something that can't fail. It is impossible, but you can create really strong things. We'll redact that and change that. You can create something really, really strong if you can be honest with yourself about what is and is not doing well, and then make the appropriate changes. And by having perspective, by really knowing the truth about what you're working with, by really knowing the truth about the long-term momentum of what you're doing, you can restart or change or implement things which make what you're doing much stronger, okay, and much more viable. Viability is a big key word with this transit. Restructuring towards a higher level of viability is kind of our mantra. What can I restructure so that it's more viable? Okay. Not what can I restructure so that it makes me look better. Not what I can restructure so that I don't feel as if I have nothing to do in my life. Like what I can restructure to really get at that person, because that's a sensitive point. Like what I can restructure so that it becomes more viable. Okay. So on that note, everyone, enjoy this eclipse. It's eclipse season. Something comes in, something goes out. Really, really often shift in paradigm with eclipses. So thank you so much for being here. I hope you've enjoyed this quick segment on the annular solar eclipse in Gemini happening on June 10th, echoing for sure until the time of July 10th. If you enjoyed this video, hit the subscribe button below, turn on the bell notifications, hit the like button, and be sure to check out the description box below. This channel is on Patreon. I am on Twitter as well, and I have a merch line too in the merch bar. If you wanted to support this channel, be sure to check out the merch. It's really good. And comment below. Let me know how you are doing during this eclipse. Much love, everyone. We'll talk soon. Bye.